Welcome! I'm Toni Hodge, and I'm here today with Lelelewa, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Tea with Toni. We are going to share some tea. We're having a little talk about Lelelewa and who she is and her practice, and I'm so excited to have you here today, Lelelewa.
Thank you.
Today we are going to try some Very Berry liver and kidney tonic. Very good for detoxifying the body. It tastes great.
It does. I love it. It's my favorite.
It's got some lemongrass and some goji berries and many herbs that are going to help you to detoxify. But the important part is to sit and commune with your tea and with a friend. So let's just go ahead and get started, Lelelewa. Let's talk about Lelelewa. Who is Lelelewa?
Okay. All right. Well, I guess if you ask it that way, then I would have to answer that who I am is a seeker of spirit with a big heart of love. And mostly I have been loving spirit and the path of spirit since I was a child, since I can remember. And because of that intense need, that search that I've had in my heart and in my life, all my life, then I've been able to immerse myself in spiritual teachings and spiritual practices for really the past 35 years, officially, as it were. And so, because of this great love, for spirit, and for the path of spirit, it's led me to study with spiritual teachers and masters, and to obtain, trainings and certifications everywhere from meditation and teaching meditation to prayer and in-depth prayer experiences for myself, and ultimately to share outward, and training and experiences in hypnosis, hypnotherapy, being able to change the mind and to understand how it is that my mind and the way I think and the way I feel and the way I live affects my whole self, my spirit. And I've always been kind of obsessed with trying to understand what is the right thing to do. So when I was very young, of course, it was kind of focused through Christianity. Mm-hmm. And yet I found that in my early 20s that Christianity really didn't, it was a structure that was too confined to keep the message of love and to keep the message of spirit in. And so I really started expanding what that meant, but still with the idea of, well, what is it that spirit would say to me? And so, using my intuition and becoming a psychic is as much for myself, and spiritual counseling is as much for myself as it is to share outward. But a big part of my life is that everything that I gather, then I wish to share with others. So that's pretty much me. I'm pretty immersed in the path of spirit, and I have a heart on fire to share that with others so that their lives can be improved, and so that there can be less suffering in the world, in people, in the earth all around us.
That's so exciting, Lelelewa, because I am beginning to see that what is happening now is there's a thirst for that. People that may have not had the upbringing that you or I had, or brought upon ourselves, more so than not. These people are now beginning to reach out for this information. So it's really exciting to know that you're out there for others. What is spiritual counseling? And how is it different than say traditional psychotherapy or other types of counseling that are more mainstream?
Well, I would say that it's similar, but also very different. You know, what's the most important in spiritual counseling is, first of all, the insight that comes about through myself, and that is awakened in a person. Comes through intuition, comes from addressing the soul and the spiritual side of a person and the issue and the question at hand. And so I would say that's the main distinguishing quality of spiritual counseling. So a person is coming not so much because they want to know their diagnosis, like does happen in psychotherapy, and which I find is very important in many situations for us to understand what's going on with our mind, and to try to, using psychotherapy, they're working towards helping a person to be able to resolve or change that state of mind or live with it. Whereas for myself, when I work with a person, whether they have a diagnosis or not, then I'm helping them to discover, well, what is my purpose in life? What is the meaning of this situation? What is it that my soul, my higher self would have to say? What is it that my history, whether it's my ancestors from the people who I know as my family, or my ancestors in soul, in the spirit world, what input would spirit have to say on these things? And it's also about integration, in that I'm not just a physical plain person. I have my body, and my body is valuable and important, but it isn't really who I am. And my mind, like who I think I am and what all my stories are about everything, we get really caught into thinking that's who I am. But what happens when something big changes? Then who am I, right? And so understanding that who I am is my spirit, having an experience in the physical plane world, it definitely influences our body, it influences our mind and our thoughts, but it's the core of who we truly are. And with that, then we have this stability, right? And we also know what our purpose is in life. And we can integrate all those together. So sometimes it might be said that was this holistic counseling. Well, it is in the sense that we see a person as a wholeness, and not just a segment, but also allowing and understanding that the spiritual self can influence and awaken all aspects of our being, our body, our mind, and our spiritual expression in life. And so that's why people come, is to be able to me specifically, is to be able to find that insight into their life and their situation that is very unique from a regular mainstream type of therapist.
So, but what I hear you saying is you don't have to get a prescription to come and see you. You don't necessarily have to have something monumental wrong. But a person could come to you just because they're feeling like they need to know more about themselves, or they're feeling slightly disconnected, and you could help to sort those questions out for them.
That's right. So sometimes people do come, they come in a crisis, and that kind of opens up the door to their questioning process. But generally speaking, spiritual counseling is not counseling in terms of, like you just said, there's something wrong with me, but more about awakening to what more is there to me to understand about my soul, about my life. And not just to have me be telling you, which I can share what I see, but also to gain that insight for yourself, to gain those tools. You know, most people, I didn't anyway, have anyone to say to me when I was a child, well, you know, you're having an intuitive spiritual experience, and this is what you do about it. No, it was in a very tight box how it could be experienced, and there was a lot of taboos, and so my creativity a lot of times, my intuition a lot of times was squelched because I had no way. And the people around me didn't have any way to help me with what does it mean to have empathy, what does it mean to have intuition, what does it mean to have dreams that you're trying to understand, precognitive dreams, or what is it that you feel your guides are visiting you, or you have a longing and a searching. So all of those things are addressed in spiritual counseling, and I don't even like to use totally the word counseling. I think a lot of it has to do with the spiritual path and spiritual awakening and learning about who I am in this world and how to manifest it. And that shows up in a crisis period, but it also can show up at any time. Any person may find that they are longing to express that spirit in their life and to figure out how to develop their spiritual, their psychic, their earth-based connection, all of these ways of being in the world.
So what came to my mind is when you used the word path several times, and what comes to my mind, I found myself thinking of someone sort of walking ahead of me or beside me, and they're a guide.
Right. Yeah. In fact, that's what is on my business card, spiritual guide and teacher. And one thing that's really true is we go back to our first conversation today to think about this immersion. And, I'm fully immersed in the spiritual practice and the spiritual process. I don't consider myself to be some sort of master being, great being. I just know that whatever it is that I'm willing to share or offer with another person is something that I myself experience, that I myself know. And so when you talk about that guide, if I've been on that journey, I can say, look out for that rock.
Exactly.
Or, this is what's going on, right? And this is how you get around it. But understand that we're all on the journey together. And it doesn't end, right? So sometimes people will come and they'll want to do a program for a period of time and they'll say, well, I'm done. Well, but we don't ever get done. Maybe you're done with that program, but really it just opens up another whole door for a whole different level of expression and learning. And that's what's so exciting about the Path of Spirit. So yes, being a guide really helps a person. You're not carrying everybody on the path. You're walking with them, sometimes beside, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, to kind of push, to be able to let's go.
The prod.
So that
sort of like the shepherd with the staff.
Sometimes that happens, yes indeed. But it's a blessing, it's really fun, and it's a journey. And I know that there's a lot to be said right now, and people are speaking a lot about, well, you are your own teacher, and you are the one. And that's absolutely true. We do need to find our own path and find our own way. But if you look at history over thousands of years, at least a good part of it, all beings who came to a space of enlightenment and awakenedness had teachers. They all had teachers, usually more than one, but sometimes one. And that those teachers were the ones that would able to be the catalyst for that growth that needed to happen. So it's really both. We need our teachers to be able to share with us, to show us, to help us, and to give us those tools. But it really is up to us.
Well,
it really is up to us.
And fundamentally, humans are not intended to be an island unto themselves. We are very, very, very socially connected beings. I would suspect that trying to go it alone could in itself create confusion.
Yes, because we ourselves have our blind spots.
And our stories
Yes.
that sometimes get very big.
And we don't know what they are.
Exactly.
I mean, sometimes it's obvious, but
Mhm.
sometimes not so much. And that's why, I myself have teachers that I work with to keep me in that place where I'm always growing and changing, but also so that I don't get caught in my own web of knowing, right? And so then this is how we share, right? It's not that they're the only teacher, or I'm the only teacher. A student could be a teacher, but we all have this way of helping one another to go forward. We just don't, you're so right, we just don't do it by ourselves. We don't do anything by ourselves.
No.
Interdependence. We're connected to everybody else.
No.
And even if
Exactly.
we don't know their name, we can be greatly affected by the choices other people make.
So let's just take a step through that door into a session with Lelelewa. So the door opens and you give us a greeting, and then what happens? What's a session like with Lelelewa?
Well, when someone comes in for a session, we usually sit together and talk just like you and I are right now. And because I feel like it's really important to clarify what it is that you really want from the session. What is your intention? What do you want to have when you are done? And of course you won't know the specifics because otherwise you wouldn't be there. But it just helps to have that intention. So we talk about it. I kind of talk about it as emptying the bowl, or putting things out there of what it is that we want to work on. Years ago, when I was primarily doing psychic work, then somebody would come in and look at me, and then I would tell them everything of what was, right? But I really don't do that now, not because I can't, but because we're doing this together. It's a dialogue. So we sit, we visit, and we empty the bowl, and then we have a time of quiet, set the intention, and then we have a time of quiet and meditation always, to sit together and to each of us just be calm and connect with ourselves, just to be present. And so after a few moments, we begin a dialogue, and I would be sharing with you what it is that I see, or what it is that I feel, or what it is, that guidance that might be coming for you. And then would invite you to comment about that, to talk about that, to share what you have felt about that, or and so on. And then I have different tools. Sometimes I use a tool of divination, like an oracle that I've created, or some cards. Oftentimes we will, what's called for is a ceremony or an exercise that we do together. So I'll explain that or teach that, and then we do it together. And if a person is working with me like on a monthly basis, or bi-monthly basis, they're in a group, they're in a class, and they're going through a process, and we review also those teachings, the processes that they're going through, so that we can really hone in on those specific areas that are really relevant to that person, to take it deeper, to make it really personal. And so that's a session. It usually lasts an hour, hour and 15 minutes, something like that. And
not too painful.
No, it's actually very fun. I tried it. It's fun for me.
Right.
Sometimes there's, of course, we're dealing with hard things. But even that there's such a joy in being with one another and sharing with each other our experience of life, and not being alone. So sometimes there's tears, and sometimes there's laughter, and hopefully some of both involved in the session. I'm
very visual with imagery, And again, I started thinking about when you spoke about the quiet time and waiting for the conversation to evolve. It's like music or light and dark. You can't have one without the other. And music isn't music unless there's spaces between the notes.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that commune with another person, again, it's way different than sitting by yourself and trying to manifest answers with no outside input or questioning or just guidance, as we spoke of earlier. But having those spaces in between to allow the next note to pop up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's really exciting. I think that sounds, in my mind, a very easy step, very comfortable step for most people. Do you have anything coming up that's... You said something about classes, so in your conversation about a personal session, you mentioned classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's going on with classes? What have you got?
Mm-hmm.
What have you got in that bag of goodies?
Well, a program or a class that I do is usually, and in fact I'd even probably call it more like a course or a program, because it's a body of teachings, a deep learning process that we could go through. So for instance, one thing that's coming up very soon is my Living and Dying program.
Mm.
And this is a program that really addresses everything you'd ever want to know really about death.
Mm.
But really very much about life. And that's the feedback I've gotten over and over again about. It's bringing together that sacred hoop of life and death and seeing how they're interrelated. Now, in a practical sense, that means that we're addressing some of the metaphysical teachings about death, what happens after death, near-death experiences, the processes emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually that we go through at the end of life or
Mm-hmm.
when we're faced with a loss,
Mm-hmm.
and how we approach death in our lives, because how we approach the end of our life is very much how we have done life. And
Mm-hmm.
another way of saying that is that how we die is very much how we live our life.
Mm.
And so we explore that in depth, because the importance is preparing ourselves for death is learning how to live in a way that we are ready for death at any time. Not that we are wanting it, but because
It's
we
not
want
a
to be
death
alive.
wish. It's a
Not
life
at all.
wish, right?
It's a life wish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also about, being fully present to life when it's here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of evidence that shows that when people begin to contemplate their death, that they begin to have a more meaningful and powerful experience of their everyday life, appreciating the people around them, the experience that they're having. And so this course really addresses that. And it's 7 months. We meet one Saturday a month for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also meet one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we're able to take those teachings, those exercises, those learnings, and go deeply into where that person is. Because not everybody is in the same place. Some people might themselves have a life-threatening illness and need to address that. Whereas another person might be, 30 years old and wanting to just know more about the process, maybe because of their career or their family or just
Mm-hmm.
and desire to know. So that's the program that I'm the most putting energy into right now because I'm so excited about it, and it starts in about a month, the end of September.
What's the date?
It starts the 15th of September is a free introductory class that will be here at Shangri-La
Okay.
in the wellness in the back. And then it starts on the 19th of September.
Okay.
And which is a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And as it fills up, if there are some people who still haven't yet come, because I'd like to have around 10 people is a good number, then we may move it up a week or two. But if it's full, we'll be starting on the 19th of September.
September 19th.
Yeah.
Mark your calendars.
September 19th. Now another class that's happening, which is a little bit less extensive, but still very awesome and comprehensive, is about working with the right relationship with food. Yeah.
Close to my heart.
Close to your heart. And actually, Toni and I are talking about collaborating in this work because it's so relevant and so pertinent to this moment.
It is.
And where I approach it from is, well, in some ways, about how you're thinking and how you're feeling and your connection to the earth. Ideas and attitudes and conditioning in regards to food. Now you're seeing some of my hypnosis training in there.
Oh, okay.
Because that's really addressing what are the emotions. Do I eat for emotional reasons? Well, everybody I think does to some degree.
Oh, that's why there's a multitude of comfort foods out there.
Yes. And yet that can really get in our way when we are trying to be a healthy person. We're discovering that, obesity and heart disease and diabetes and all of these problems are happening health-wise now because of our of all the processed foods and the comfort foods and things that are not really good for us if we're eating them out of balance.
Well, and actually I often find that some people are not eating out of control, but yet they're still experiencing these issues. And I believe that it is deep within their soul, that something is not allowing them to move forward and be healthy. And so this is where your spiritual component meets with my experiential tantric component. So that we can get to a place where not only are we connected to the earth and connected to the reality of what food really is for us, but also play with it, enjoy it, be at one with it. Because this is something that it's not like the addiction of an alcohol or a drug. We can't just stop eating. We have to nourish our bodies or we die. And so I think that this component that we're talking about here is very exciting, very pertinent to the times with the earth struggling to feed us.
Yeah.
The mother is having a very difficult time right now trying to come up with enough food answers, which in reality I believe is in the soul of the people. It needs to be brought out.
Yeah, so the relationship with food is not what you would consider to be fitness and nutrition in the classical sense.
Exactly.
But embracing that we have a responsibility to, if we want to be healthy and alive, and this is personally and collectively, we must redefine our relationship with food and not use it as an addiction, but appreciate it as a gift from the divine. That's what I'm hearing from you, and that's a place where I feel like we can really connect in our work with that.
And that's an experiential component for me. All my life I have wondered about this sense and watched people eat and how they live and how they feel and their wellness or lack thereof. And at the same time, going back to my teen years, I had some eating disorder. And so I have an experience there that's very directly related to my emotional body, and I understand that. And I can help people define that for themselves through my own upbringing. I call it that because I had to bring myself up in order to release myself from the bondage of that emotional pattern. And we're in a stage in life now where I think people are ready to accept the temple that their soul exists in, and that is this body right here. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to feel that desire to get more connected there is coming through.
Yes, and it's a very important component. You know, we can have fitness, and we can work out, and we can know all of these facts, and we can push all of it. But until we address the soul, we're not going forward.
No.
Yeah. So most likely this class will be on a Tuesday evening, starting in October, and go about 6 weeks, ending up right before Thanksgiving.
Perfect timing.
Yep. And we will explore all of these different aspects, like why am I motivated for eating? What is motivating me? What's going on in my mind? How do I help these emotions? And then bringing the spirit in. And so I'm looking forward to collaboration here, because I think it's very, very important, and perhaps even a continued collaboration into the future to really bring this message into our community.
I agree. Mm-hmm. Let's have a little toast.
And toast. Toast.
To wellness, both spiritually and physically. So I guess we need to talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, Lelelewa, because I imagine that this conversation we're having is going to spur some excitement, I hope. And so how will people get in touch with you?
Well, right now the best way is to call me or email me.
Okay.
My website I do have a website, and it's available, and I will give that to you. It is under construction at the moment because I'm going through a major change and evolution in my work. I'm changing the name of my practice from Heartfire Institute, which it has been for 20 years, to Wisdom Tree Circle, Insight, Healing, and Spiritual Awakening. So you can be looking for that on my website and on all of my materials going forward.
Her burning heart desire has not changed. I'll let you know that
Absolutely
right now.
Not. No. But you see, I'm changing it from Heartfire Institute because that seems more like a school and sort of like an institution. Mm-hmm. And I'm changing it to Wisdom Tree Circle because it's a sacred hoop. Mm. And we're all going to the Wisdom Tree to gather what it is that we know and then to share that out into the world. So that's one way of talking about the evolution. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So my phone number is area code 208-384-1017. Again, it's 208-384-1017. And the email address is 4 words, heartfireeaglesong@gmail.com.
heartfireeaglesong@gmail.com.
That's right.
Excellent.
Heartfireeaglesong@gmail.com. And My website address is www.lelelewa.org. That's LELELEWA.org.
Very good. And from there, I assume there's a contact.
Absolutely. You
As
can
well.
find all my contact information by Googling my name.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lelelewa, for blessing us with your presence. And thank you for all the beautiful work you do. And thank you for watching Tea with Toni.